Yeah, so welcome back to Fifth Down, where I'm your host, Andre Caldwell, the drippiest host in sports. And let's get into comparing the 2013 Legion of Boom versus the 2015 No-Fly Zone. And I'm going to be upfront and frank with you. The no-fly zone is the better defense, hands down, no comparison. I don't care what the numbers say, and I'm going to prove it to you right now on Fifth Down. And I heard the statements Elway said. You should be flattered. You should be a part. You should love that. But the defense Elway put together after that was a better defense, and I'm going to prove it to you because I know what the numbers say. I got my stats. I got my paperwork too. But you know what? Numbers lie. And when you're looking at the numbers and you're doing the comparison, the no-fly zone versus Legion of Boom, no-fly zone had 14 interceptions that year. They gave up 19 passing touchdowns, and they gave up 199 yards per game. Now, when you go on the Legion of Boom, they was a little bit better. They had 28 interceptions. They doubled in interceptions. They gave up 176 yards a game. They gave up 14 touchdowns that season. Amazing, but the numbers do lie because you should have more interceptions. When you're talking about a man and a zone team, the Legion of Boom, a strictly zone team for the most part. All of them are looking in at the quarterback, eyes on quarterback. They seeing the ball release. They're playing the area. And you know, when you're playing man coverage, you have to guard your man. Wherever he goes, you have to go. And that's not the concept in a zone defense. So you should have more interceptions. You got your linebackers and you have your corners and DBs looking in at the quarterback, seeing the ball thrown because they're guarding the area. Conversely, when you're playing man coverage, you have to just guard your man. You can't be looking in at the quarterback. You are playing this man and making sure he don't catch the ball. You cannot look back at the quarterback, so you have less opportunities and you in less of a position to actually get an interception. So you should double in interception. So yeah, y'all have more interception you were supposed to. And when we talk about style of play, the no-fly zone definitely played a sexier brand of football. But the Legion of Boom, compared to the no-fly zone, if you're thinking of like boxing, no-fly zone is like Mike Tyson. Everybody come to see the knockout punch. Everybody want to see the heavy hitter. We want to see power blows. It's sexy, it's quick, it's fast, it's dominant. On the Legion of Boom side, it's more like a Floyd Mayweather. Both of them are great. Both of them dominate. But y'all out there just jab, 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 counter punch. Can't get touched. That's the style that's how it is. Both are great in their own right. But people are paying the big bucks to watch Mike Tyson more so than a Floyd Mayweather. We just here for the spectacles with Floyd Mayweather. It's not actually the fight. Nobody wants to see a 12-round fight. Jab, counter, jab, duck, weave, jab, counter. Everybody want to see the one-hit knockout punch. That's what the sexier style of football from the no-fly zone is. When it's a gotta have it down, the Broncos is going to play man coverage compared to the Legion of Boom. When it's a gotta have it down, they're going to go in cover 3. They're going to play in that zone. And that wasn't by design. That wasn't because y'all had smart or high IQs or coaches on the field. You did not have the personnel to play man. You did not have 3 good corners. Matter of fact, you had 1 good starting corner, and that was Richard Sherman. The other cornerback was Brandon Browner, a 6'4", knock-needed long corner. He could not play man, and he got suspended week 8 in the season. And then you had to bring in Byron Maxwell, who had 0 starts at this time. He was a nickel or dime corner. He had 0 starts at this point in his career. He was not capable of playing or following a receiver. He was not a shutdown corner. And then you had to go with Thurman in the nickel. That was a mismatch. No starts, a young rookie player. So you did not have the personnel. Personnel was the reason y'all played zone. Y'all just perfected it. But you couldn't play man. I'm sure y'all played it here and there, but y'all did not have the personnel. Gotta have it down. A play need to be made. Y'all did not have the personnel to lock it down. I hear about all these pick plays and IQ. No, it was not about the IQ. It was not about y'all had coaches on the field. Y'all had smart guys and some of these other players. What you think the Broncos had? We go to work just like you. We watched film just like y'all did. We studied on the after hours just like you. We just had 3 lockdown corners. Actually, this is the greatest trio of cornerbacks in football history. Is no team ever had 3 cornerbacks comparable to Lee, Bradley Roby, and Chris Harris. Nobody. It's not a team in history. Look it up. Go through the books. This is the greatest trio of cornerbacks in history. Y'all had just one legit starting corner. Now, y'all safeties on the back end, that was another story. With Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, dominant. Head buster, ball hawks, whatever you want to call them. They were playmaker, all pro players matched with Sherman. But the rest, it's a wash. And you said any one of these corners could have went to the no-fly zone and started. That's cap. Cap. At this point, Sherman, you couldn't even went to the no-fly zone and started. You was not going to start over Talib or Chris Harris. No, you couldn't do it. You would have got overruled because he was a rookie. But we had 3 number 1 corners in our secondary. 3 number 1 corners. Now, y'all had the better safety, but we had Darren Stewart and TJ was like that. Both of those men were like that. So I give y'all had the better safety, but from the secondary position, cornerbacks, this is the greatest trio you will ever see in history. Because there's no way y'all could have lined it up against us with the Broncos. Man coverage with that secondary. We had DT, we had Deck, and Welker. With the Julius Thomas, y'all could not line it up man on man, mano a mano, and win. That was the reason y'all played zone. It's not about no high IQ or y'all had smart guys. We had smart guys too. This is football. Everybody in the NFL is smart. We out here studying and trying to be the best that we could be just like y'all were. This is football. Nobody care what you did in classroom, at this university. And then come to football, playing with a Peyton Manning, playing against a Peyton Manning every day. We got high IQs too. I got a PhD in football and how to win football games, how to beat different personnel, how to execute, how to dominate, how to run routes, how to get in and out the breaks. I have a PhD in that, just like I'm sure y'all do in Seattle. So you can miss me with, we had high IQ. No, you didn't have the personnel to play man coverage and lock it down across the board like the no-fly zone did. That is why y'all play zone. Personnel reasons. That was just plain and simple. Browner was your number 2 corner. Thurman was the 4 corner. Then you had Byron Maxwell. Both of those young guys, no stars at the cornerback position, not tested at all. Y'all didn't even know what they could do. Y'all didn't know how good they was. They never had real live action at the cornerback position, one-on-one on the island. So y'all did not have the personnel to execute is the reason y'all played zone coverage. Not IQ, not smarter than anybody, none of that. Personnel only. If you take the no-fly zone, it automatically gonna put Chris Harris in there. Talib is better than your number 2 corner. I'm gonna give you a wash with Sherman because he's an all-pro, hell of a player. But when it comes to number 2, when it came to Browner, Thurman, or Maxwell, Chris Harris, Roby, and Talib will start over all those guys. So you can't even make that comparison. Now, the safety, I'll give you that. Y'all had 2 all-pro talented players. Y'all have that. We had some really, really, really good safeties. Were they better than y'all's? No. But you can't swap teams because it's more heavy, more wins on the Denver Broncos side than it is the Legion of Boom side. And that's not even going down to the linebacker and lineman play. We just keeping it in the secondary. So yes, the numbers say, hey, y'all gave up this many yards, y'all had this many interceptions, but they are lies. Numbers lie. Personnel don't. These eyes don't lie. When you got a football IQ and high IQ like we do, numbers lie. It's a reason slot corners struggle to get in the Hall of Fame. It's a reason. We know players like Deion Sanders, Reeves Island, because they were locked down man corners. The best of the best going to be man corners. We don't consider zone corners the best of the best. When you can lock it up man to man, that's when you get the most respect. Because as a receiver, it's way harder going against a top-notch corner that you know you're going to have to beat mano a mano, one-on-one all day. It's the reason Patrick Surtain is the top corner in the league because he's a man corner. Zone corners do not get the love and respect as a man corner. So that's why it's a sexier style of play. It's a harder style of play in all aspects. So yeah, was y'all great at the zone and cover 3? Absolutely. I don't want to take nothing away from that defense, but we all know if you play this game, man coverage is key. Man coverage is king. If you could get a man corner, you could easily teach them how to play zone, but you cannot teach a zone corner how to play man to man and lock it down. It don't work like that. So y'all lack the personnel that we had. A 3-man trio, which is the greatest trio in history in the NFL. Look it up. And we all know playing man is a lot harder than playing zone defense. From a receiver standpoint, from a corner standpoint, we know that. Let's be real. So today we have a special guest, a brother of mine, a Super Bowl champion, a Legion of Boom member, Kayvon Webster. Kayvon, what's up?
What's up, bro?
Yeah, so I was just, like I was saying on the show, we talking about the 2013 Legion of Boom versus 2015 No-Fly Zone. Who was the better team? Who was the better defense? What you got for me? What you think? Cause you was a part of that. You was a part of that defense. You was in those meeting rooms. You know those conversations.
Yeah, I see a lot of stuff going on online about who was better, and I think Richard Sherman take on it. Obviously I know my teammates take on it. So we can get right to it. Both teams were definitely legendary.
Absolutely.
Had a nice run, and so did the nice no-fly zone. But for me, I'm gonna pick the no-fly zone for a couple of reasons. The no-fly zone had the #1 total defense, #1 pass defense, #1 in sacks. We were #4 in run defense. Obviously, we were Super Bowl champions, just like they were champions. They had a #1 total defense and a #1 pass defense, but they run defense was #7.
Right.
Some of the arguments that I would make, is that Denver defense had to carry more weight than Seattle. Seattle had a more of a offensive balance. Our offense wasn't as efficient as a younger Russell Wilson with Marshawn Lynch and Cass.
Absolutely. Like I said, we at that point we had the name recognition. We had the Peyton Mannings. We had the Demaryius Thomas. We had Decker, Wes Welker, but we was not efficient. That was our worst year by far. We stayed going 3 and out. Y'all always made the play to win the game, to keep us in the game, because we was trash. Just to be plain and simple with it, we was not efficient in the run game nor the passing game. And No-Fly and Legion of Boom, they had a Marshawn Lynch who was one of the best backs in the league. They had a young Russell, and they had some playmakers on the end making plays at the wide receiver position.
Right. So I would say, it wasn't that we was trash. We just wasn't as efficient as we could have been. Everybody compares that 2013 offense. When Peyton came out and threw 55 touchdowns that year, and then went to the Super Bowl, and we lost to Legion of Boom. But I think everybody's forgetting that in 2013 when we lost, we probably had about 8 or 9 guys that were starters on our defense that were out. Akeem wasn't there at the time, and TJ and Roby wasn't there at the time. So when they came in, that was like the following year, and 2014, we just gelling together. And in 2015, we really put it together. Our pass rush and our coverage combo, we had Vaughn and DeMarcus Ware coming off the edge.
Yeah.
That assisted with the no-fly zone being who they were. So our corners, I would take our corners and our edge rush over Legion of Boom. Not saying that.
Right. There's no shade at the Legion of Boom.
There's no shade. Legion of Boom was great. Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, and Byron Maxwell. They definitely had a great secondary. They had some great pieces on their defense.
Right.
But our front seven plus our secondary combination was was a little bit more complete. And then if we want to talk about like game comparison, let's talk about our playoff run where we beat Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady in his prime, and then we also beat the MVP and Cam Newton that year, and we held them to 10 points in the Super Bowl. I believe Legion of Boom held us to 8 points.
Yeah.
We lost 43-8.
Yep.
You know, but I would say our quarterback play was more elite than the play that they had. Yes, Drew Brees was great at that time, but then they beat up Colin Kaepernick. And, you know, they beat, Peyton Manning, who had a record year that year.
Yeah.
But our path had a more complete, QB talent across the board. When you talk about Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, and Cam Newton.
I also challenge the fact, I think the no-fly zone with Roby, Chris Harris, Akeem Talib is the greatest trio combo ever in history. I don't think there's a greater trio of of cornerbacks in history compared to those guys. I think they number one in the football history of greatest trio.
I think we got to look at it like, I think Denver kind of started the formula with having, three really good guys.
Right.
At the wide receiver position. In 2013, we had Eric Decker,
Wes Welker, and Demaryius Thomas.
And Wes Welker. And then we went to Julius Thomas.
Right.
We had a good running back with Doshan,
Right.
And then, we had you coming off too as well.
Yeah.
So I think everybody started, forming that formula after that Denver year when we went to the Super Bowl, when we lost. And, we just matched it on our side where we drafted Roby, we had acquired a key, and Chris was already there. And then we acquired two really great safeties.
Yeah.
With TJ and Darian Stewart. The supporting cast was great as well. With David Bluin and Omar Bowden.
And yourself. Yeah.
But when you talk about schematics, I feel like our defense was more individually overwhelming, and Seattle was more system dominance. With them.
Right.
In an elite system, they were very disciplined with that cover three. They definitely mastered cover three. With Denver, we played a lot of man and a lot of pressures. Plus, we had a lot of swag out there. When we did play those games.
Right.
We actually challenged people in man-to-man coverage and in pressure defense. We also had corners that traveled.
Yeah.
Our corners traveled that year, and some pretty big moments. I would say the clutch factor for us was that we beat Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
We closed the game when it mattered. Seattle didn't really have. I'm not gonna say like they had a lesser battle than we had when it came to quarterbacks. They had Drew Brees had a good year that year.
Mm-hmm.
But then they played Colin Kaepernick. He was right on his high as well.
Right.
But the Legion of Boom, they were definitely a dominant unit. But I'm gonna take the no-fly zone just because our defense could win games against elite quarterbacks, and that's where you see the championship football coming into play. Both defenses were elite. But I would have to take our defense because our defense had to win games,
Absolutely. And like you said, they had a great defense with the Legion of Boom. But at the time of it, because I heard Sherman say they had high IQ guys. They were smart guys. That's why they played cover three. And I challenged that because I said they didn't have the personnel at the time. And because if you look back at Byron Maxwell, he had 0 starts under his belt. Brandon Browner was their number 2 corner actually at the time. He just got suspended. So it ended up being a first-time starter in Byron Maxwell on the back end of the season. And you also had Walter Thurman, who was a dime corner, who had to move up to the nickel. So I feel they really had they had one dominant corner, which was Richard Sherman, who dominated, but the rest was a wash because they couldn't match up with any teams personnel wise to play man, and they played in the system that was so great and dominant. More more so if you play man, that's more individual skill set, that's more personnel skill set, more so than a system skill set with a zone team.
Right. So our defense was, exceptional.
Yeah,
Zone coverage for us was like time to eat type of thing. We were getting interceptions and man, they might have had I don't know the stat, but they probably beat the boom. They had a great run.
yeah,
I think their run was about 2 to 3 years or 4, if I'm not mistaken.
right,
No fly zone. I think our run was maybe about 1 or 2 years.
right,
But with Chris and Talib and Roby, being in there, they played elite man football, and even when we called some zone pressures, it was basically us relying on those guys' football IQ to be in the right place at the right time when it comes to man coverage.
right. Because like you say, I played against y'all a lot. Being a backup, I was the main guy y'all was going against in practice, and I know a lot of you guys had high IQs. You were smart. You studied a lot. You put in the extra hours in the training room, in the study room, meeting room, and y'all was like a real brotherhood. Every time I seen one, I seen the other 4 or 5 guys outside of practice, inside of practice. Y'all was like a complete unit of brothers, and it showed on game days.
Yeah, well, Talib did a great job of, holding everybody accountable. I think when he came, it was like a change in leadership. It made football more fun. He was a student of the game. Chris was a student of the game too, but he wasn't as vocal as Talib was. And when Talib was there, it was more so like he was like your teacher, or he was just like a person in administration when it comes to game plan. You didn't want to let your teammate down when it came to him because he studied film, he studied where he had to get interceptions and where he had to be really great at. And we had a great coach in Joe Woods, and it was just a real unique thing where our leaders held everybody accountable to watching that tape so that we could be in the right place at the right time. Because if he wasn't able to be in there, they would have been counting on me to be in the right place at the right time. And I was able to play some games, and then I was able to play in some big moments as well, like the AFC Championship. And without that leadership, of watching film and just being a student of the game, I don't think Denver wins that. No fly zone wouldn't be who they were.
Right.
Without Talib and Chris and TJ and Stu's leadership as far as keeping everybody accountable, watching that film. And man, not to mention Vaughn went crazy in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a unique thing. Our front seven, played lights out. We had Malik Jackson, Derek Wolf, DeMarcus Ware. Then we had Shaquille Barrett and Shane Ray.
Yeah.
Coming off the bench, and then you got Von Miller and Van. We just had a complete front seven.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Talib made everybody accountable, and you could just see it because even when guys had to get a breath or got hurt for a little moment, when you came in the game, Omar, the standard was set so high, it didn't matter if it was a backup or a start in. The standard stayed the standard. Y'all was competitive as hell and just kept dominating every week.
Yeah, it started with practice, started with camp. We set ourselves out to be legendary. Our leader held us accountable for watching tape. Joe Woods did a great job of breaking film down and letting us know, key players that teams are going to keep running, recognizing formations, recognizing personnel. Those things was key for us to play man-to-man coverage, more pressure defense. We didn't really too much rely on zone defense. And, I think when it comes to football, you would rather take a man corner over a zone corner or a zone defense anytime.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Legion of Boom definitely was, elite. Can't take nothing away from those guys. Those guys came out and they laid it on the line every Sunday. It's actually funny. Joe Woods used to show us like Richard Sherman's read step. He had everybody who wasn't to leave and who wasn't Chris Harris doing that read step. So credit to Sherman with his technique when it came to him playing man. But they were primarily a zone team. We were a man team. And I would have to go to no-fly zone just because the defense had to win majority of the games that year.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all definitely kept us in a lot of games. Because, like I said, it was a lot of games. We after the games, as an offense, we felt like we let y'all down. We didn't hold our end of the bargain. And we was mad at the end of the game, but we was winning because the defense kept us in it. And like you say, we was more of a cornerback heavy team, and the Legion of Boom was more of a safety heavy team, dominant team. You know what I'm saying? Like our best guys were our cornerbacks. As to them, they best guys were their safety with also an all-pro corner. Like that just.
We had some Pro Bowl safeties.
Absolutely, T.J. Ward and D. Stu was a beast back there.
Yeah, they definitely brought the hammer down. I would take our guys over anybody.
Absolutely.
Just for the simple fact, I went to war with them. I've actually got to see Legion of Boom, play against us, and then I actually got to practice with, the no-fly zone. So.
Absolutely. Like I say, it was hell.
Watching both defenses and, learning about each player, I feel like we were the more complete, secondary because we had to play man-to-man coverage. And we had to play most of our games. It was like, we can't give up plays. We got to get off the field on third down. We can't afford to give up touchdowns, and we barely could afford to give up field goals. So, we were always in those awkward situations where we could not let our team down. And if it wasn't for, defense and special teams, who knows where we would have been.
With the production we had on offense compared to what we were used to, it was a huge drop-off. But y'all definitely carried the torch and just like took it to a whole nother level of dominance week after week after week.
For sure.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you being part of the show, getting your insight and input on who is the greatest defense. Legion of Boom, No-Fly Zone. We got a vote, a No-Fly Zone over here with Kayvon, Webster, and myself. And that's how we just rocking.
But I would say Legion of Boom dominated the season. No-Fly Zone, we dominated quarterbacks, And in the league, if you can rank elite quarterbacks under playoff pressure, that's the highest level of defensive football there is. Respect to Seattle, but Denver didn't just defend. We didn't just play defense. We actually closed games,
Absolutely. Well, Kayvon, I appreciate you being a part of the show. We're gonna tap back in. No-Fly Zone all day. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So when it comes to comparing the No-Fly Zone versus Legion of Boom, I know what the stats say. I know what the analytics say. I know what the numbers say. You know what? Numbers lie. Because I got to go at the No-Fly Zone and how they dominated every week as the better defense. So that's a big up to Chris, Talib, TJ, D. Stu, Kayvon, Bruton, Omar, the whole gang, the greatest secondary trio in history and the better team than the Legion of Boom. No-Fly Zone. And we out.
We out here balling, boy.